Our second video is going to talk a little bit about the Sojourner Truth Library. So if you're not as familiar with it, this is going to kind of be a walkthrough. If you are pretty familiar with it, there may be some useful tips that I'll give you along the way of things you don't know about. So when you first log into the website, this is what it's going to look like until they change it, because it changes periodically. You're going to have 4 different search options. You have Search Our Library, which basically searches a good chunk of the databases that we have. This is a good catch-all, but not necessarily overly specific. Then you have the Catalog, which, as you can see here, I was already playing with it. We'll actually run that one in a second. And this basically searches for the books, the ebooks, and the videos and other media that we currently have access to through SUNY New Paltz. Then we have our databases search, and there's a number of different ways that we'll look at this. This is probably the most useful search that I do, is using the database. And then there's WorldCat. WorldCat is great, especially if you're wanting to use something called Interlibrary Loan, which again, we'll talk about that more here in a minute. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with that catalog search. And the one that I was running earlier, just to see what we had, I'm going to type in organizational communication. You see it's already there for me. So I'm going to click search. And it's going to pull up the books that we have access to. Sometimes these are relevant, like the first one, the Changing Academic Library, Operations, Cultural Environments. Maybe not necessarily the most useful thing for you. Getting to Yes, and, which is one that we commonly talk about when we're talking about negotiations. Then you have one of my books, Casing Sport Communication. You get down here, there's The Dysfunctional Workplace. There's my Training and Development book. There's one on bullying in the workplace and business strategy. Down here in the lower right-hand corner, you can see the little icon to go to the next page. Right on the next page is another one of my books, Casing Public Relations. And it goes from there. So you can kind of see this is how you go about looking at things. Now, since we're on this one, let's look at it. This is going to let you over here. So we have the copies owned and copied out. How many copies that we have? So currently we have 2 owned copies. One of them is out. You also have the call number. So if you needed to go to the stacks to pick it up, there you go. It's also possible that it's, like in the shelving area, there's all kinds of other things that we have. So you always want to see what types we have. And then we're going to look at a couple in just a second and see if we can find one that's an ebook, just to show you what that looks like. So again, you can see if whether or not we own it, where it is. For example, here's one. It's the Sage Handbook of Organizational Communication. We have 1 copy, and it's currently in. So it's not currently out there. So I'm going to keep going because I do want to find one that's not one that's in our stacks. Let's see if I can find one real fast. We got lots of them out there, as you can see. I'm going to pause this and find one real fast. Okay, so I found a book that I was looking for so I could show you what one of these look like. Here's one we have by Don Cushman. It's called Excellence in Communicating Organizational Strategy. And this is what I wanted it to say. I wanted it to say ebook because we do have access to ebooks. We actually have a huge database of ebooks that can actually be really, really useful. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that just so you can see what it's going to look like. It's going to take me over to the SUNY Digital Repository. And you can see here, it is an actual book. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to just click on it so that we can see what one looks like. This is if I want to request the document. It looks like I'm going to have to do that, or you can log into the SUNY Digital Repository. So it is one of those things that sometimes you do have to give them some information so that you can get access. But this is one of the depositories that we have, is the SUNY Digital Repository. We also possibly have, let's see if this one's through eBrary. Yep, this is probably going to be through one of our other databases. Notice I had to log in on this one. This is what's called the ebook collection, which is another one of the companies that we have books through. And this one is called Common Knowledge, How Companies Thrive by Sharing What They Know. And I'll open up the PDF book. And you'll see that this is basically a scanned version, it looks like, of the actual book. Well, now it looks like it's been paginated, but it does have the original page numbers in there, hence why it looks a little bit strange on the screen. So this is a way that we sometimes get books. It's nice because we have access to a lot more books than we could actually have in the stacks. So know that we do have some of these ebooks in our database. I'm going to go to another page and see if anything else pops up that looks interesting. Here's one. It's another ebook. Let's see which one this one is. It's another one that looks like it's through the ebook collection. This is Public Relations as Relationship Management. This one has options of EPUB full text, or you do have the ability to download it. I'm going to show you what download looks like. Oh, I think I have an EBSCOhost account. I honestly don't remember, so this will be interesting to see. Nope. Let me see. Pause. Okay, so I got ahead and signed in so that I could show you this. Now, you're going to see here it says download ebook. So I'm actually going to borrow that book. So this actually lets you, I can actually borrow it from 1 to 7 days. So I'm going to borrow it. And it's going to say success. I have, downloaded it. Now, it looks like there is the audiobook app. So I would actually download the audiobook app and I'd actually be able to get access to it there. So again, this is kind of one of those nice things that there are these different ways, or you could go to the EPUB full text, which you could just read right there for you online. There's also that download. Again, it says I still currently have that. Let's see, I'm going to download this one because that way we can see it as what's called an Adobe Digital Edition. Now, Adobe Digital Edition does require you to get this software. I'll show you the link to that. This is what's called, oh, big surprise, Adobe Digital Editions. So I'm actually going to open that file because I already have Adobe Digital Editions, and that way you can see what it looks like when it actually opens it. So basically what it does is it downloads the book to my computer. And now I have the ability to look at that computer right on my book for 7 days. So I have officially checked out this book, just like I would anything else, except now I have the ability to look at it right at home. And I don't have to actually go to the stacks to be able to get that. It's one of the nice things about ebooks. I really enjoy using ebooks because they really kind of make your life easier, especially when you're doing research. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the STL's main website. So I'm going to click over here. And the next one we want to do, which is really where most of our stuff is in the databases. Now, there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can find databases by subject, and we have subjects in here. For example, there's the business category, or there's communication. Or you can select a specific database that you know that you want to look at. For our purposes, the one that's the most common is this one right here, which is communication and mass media complete. So I'm going to click on that one, and it's going to take me into that database. So what I am going to do is I'm going to look for a specific topic. I'm going to see if I can find anything on this concept right here. Oops. It's called organizational dissent. It's stuff by Jeffrey Cassing. And so I pull it up and notice right off the bat, got 60 hits, which is nice. That means there's a decent amount of stuff out there. And it looks like the most recent one was published in Communication Studies in July and August this year. So let's see if we have access to that one. Since it was so new, we may not actually have access. So I'm going to click on this thing right here. See where it says find full text? That'll let us know if we have access to it. And if you don't see anything right here, this means we do not currently have access to that article. However, you could see this little hyperlink right here where it says SUNY New Paltz Interlibrary Loan. Just because we don't have access to it directly doesn't mean we cannot ask for it. So this is the New Paltz Interlibrary Loan. If you've never done this before, you will have to create an account. So I'm going to go ahead and log in, and notice what it automatically did. Because it was looking for something specific, it automatically filled in all of the information that I needed to have, which is great. Notice there is a little bit of a problem though. The inclusive page range is incomplete. So you do want to check that. So it should have been pages 326 to 335. So I copied that. I'm going to paste that in there. And this gives the library all the information that they actually need to be able to do that. And so I'm going to go ahead and actually crest this article because actually it looks interesting to me. It's looking at family communication patterns and organizational dissent. So could be a really interesting study. So obviously the most common way to do this is this right here is the PDF full text. You can click on that hyperlink and it's basically going to pull up the article. And there it is. And I will tell you, this looks exactly like it does if you actually got the physical copy of the journal. This is exactly what you would be looking at. In this case, we have an article here. It's called Simulating Dissent, Mapping the Lifespan of Organizational Dissent Using Agent-Based Modeling. And it was published in the Western Journal of Communication. So let's go ahead and do an actual APA style. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and copy that information. I'm going to come in here to Microsoft Word. And I'm going to paste it. And then I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to get the title of the information and I'm going to hit return. I'm going to paste that information. And then last but not least, I'm going to come down here and I need to get this little number, which is that digital object identifier right there. And you'll notice now I have all the information that I need to be able to do a correct APA style heading. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what this would look like. So first thing I want to do is you have these two little arrows here. I'm going to grab the bottom one and I'm going to pull it over that 1/2 inch. That way I know that I'm going to have that hanging indent that you need to have in APA style. So this one is authored by Garner, J T. The year was 2016. Notice what I'm doing. I'm doing exactly like we talked about. Now, for my purposes, I'm going to go ahead and copy that title and I'm going to paste it. But one of the things I want you to notice is that it did not provide the information exactly the way I need it. Because remember, I need to have the sentence case. So I need to make sure that the D is lowercase. Then this M is allowed to be uppercase because it's following that major piece of punctuation. But then I need to make the L lowercase, the S lowercase, the O lowercase, the D lowercase, and then A and B and M. And then I can put my period. So again, it's always important that you do this. So you make sure that you make that correct. Then we have the journal title here, which is the Western Journal of Communication. I'm going to go ahead and add that. That's followed by a comma. And then I'm going to put in the volume number, which is 80. Now, I do want you to notice that right next to that is the issue number. So you'll see there's the volume number and then it had the issue number there. But I can tell you because I know this journal. And again, most of our journals in the field of communication are all what we call continuously paginated. So if it's continuously paginated, that means that from one issue of the journal, so like from journal issue number 1 to journal issue number 2, we continuous the paging. So let's say that journal issue number 1 stops at page 100. Then issue number 2 is going to start on page 101. It doesn't start back at page 1. That's one of the reasons why we end up with some really high numbers right here. That doesn't mean in that one issue there's 400 something pages. Now that means over the entire year there's 400 something pages in that journal. So we do not need the issue number, but I do need that page number there. And then I'm going to go ahead and put in the DOI. It sometimes wants to capitalize that, but it's not capitalized. And again, when it comes to DOIs, do not try to type these yourself. It's almost impossible to get those correct. So it's always good to just copy and paste. The last thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and italicize the title of the journal all the way through that volume number. So I'm going to go ahead and italicize it. And of course, if we wanted to make this perfect, I'm going to go ahead and double space this. So again, it's exactly what it should look like in your reference page. So I'm going to go back in here to EBSCOhost. And now I'm going to click on the regular title and I'm going to click on the cite function that they have. And let's compare these two and see how we did. Okay, so this is what they give us. And you're going to notice right off the bat, and this is one of those things that I was warning you about, it spits out that title with all those uppercase letters. It also has the DOI for the version that we have here at New Paltz. It gives it right there. But again, for our purposes, we really don't need the doi.librarydatabase.newpaltz.edu. We just need the regular DOI for the article. So that's, again, one of the reasons why it's easier to copy and paste that. Also notice that, again, it spit out that issue number, and it didn't italicize that comma following the journal title. So again, right off the bat, that's 4 or 5 different mistakes that EBSCOhost made with this one citation. And that is why you cannot rely on EBSCOhost to do the citations for you. I often will do probably what many of you do, and that is I go there, I copy paste, and I bring it in here. But when you do that, you always have to go back through, use that APA style manual, that's why you're required to get it, and fix things. So this is how you cite an article, and again, this is how you can locate articles using the library. Now, this is just one database. There are other databases for organizational communication purposes that could be useful. So I'm going to click on that, choose databases. This shows you what we have access to. And you'll see down here, way at the bottom, we have Communication Mass Media Complete. That's the one we're looking at, but I'm going to click on a couple more. For example, Business Sort Complete is always a good one. Other ones I always like to click on are Psych Articles, Psych Behavioral Collection, and Psych Info. These are going to give us any of those things as industrial psychology. So then I'm going to click OK. So we're looking now in about 5 different databases, and let's see what that gets us. So we went from, what was it, 60 something to 162. So we definitely have a few more. And again, we always have to look at it like there's this one. It's the relationship between organizational democracy and organizational dissent. This one looks interesting because it looks like it's in a different language. So let's see. Oh, well, it has, oh yeah. So the abstract is in both, it looks like it's Turkish and English. And then, of course, the article itself is just in a foreign language. So unless you speak that language, not going to do much good for us. And sometimes that happens. And so you always have to be careful of that when it does happen. There is this other one. There's another one, that strategic dissent on organizational outcomes. Maybe not exactly what we're looking for. So you kind of have to just go through and look. This is that one that we were looking at just a minute ago. Here's the one that we did the citation for. So you'll see that it does give us different articles out there by adding those different databases. And that's really where having multiple databases at our disposal really can make our life really easy when we're trying to search for literature. I do want to show you a couple more functions in here. You can limit to functions. Like say we only want to get those ones that we have full text at Newport, so you don't want to have to interlibrary loan someone. If you click on that, that's going to update, and it'll show you which ones we have actual full text to. So all of these are now going to have that PDF icon. You can also limit it to only ones that are scholarly. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that one, and it's going to update. And so now we've gotten ourselves down quite a bit. So we're now down to 77 by limiting it to the full text and scholarly. You could also, let's say, do it by year. Let's say we only want to look at stuff after 2000, let's say, oh, we'll give us a decade, 2008. Then I have to do another update on that real fast. So I'm going to click search on that. That way it's going to update that again. It did not do what I wanted it to do. So let's try this again. 2008. There we go. And got it down to 63. So you can see how when you start limiting yourselves, it definitely can limit the number of articles that you're looking at. But you don't want to be too overboard on limiting these things, so you can limit yourself out of some really good literature that would be very, very helpful. So this is the first part of this video. The second part, I'm going to talk about doing one of those chapters in an edited book. Stay tuned. Okay, so the second part of this video is going to look at how to do a citation for a chapter in an edited book, just so that we can look at one of these. So I'm going to pull up our book here. We have The Personal Relationships, The Effect on Employee Attitudes, Behaviors, and Well-Being by Lillian Turner de Tormes Eby and Tammy D. Allen. This is our textbook. So obviously you may be citing this book. So I'm going to show you how to cite the very first chapter. So I'm going to kind of scroll through here. I don't think I have any links. Nope, I don't have any bookmarks on this one, so I'm going to have to kind of do this a little bit by eye. So I think that's the preface. So that's not what we want. So those are the contributors. I keep going. And there we go. The very, very first chapter. So in this case, again, we know that here we have the title. So I'm going to do it exactly like I did it last time. I'm going to copy this information and bring it over here to Words. Except I'm going to, there we have it. So again, notice I still have everything on double spaced. Oops, I still have that open. Then we have the two names, which actually happen to be the two authors. That just happens to be the way that one went. So I'm going to copy their names, just bringing in the information over here. So that's what I need. I also want the page range, so we know that this starts on page 3. So I'm just going to go ahead and write this in here just so I have this information. And I'm going to scroll through and I'm going to find where chapter it ends. It looks like it ends on page 13. So we know that it's going to be 3 to 13 is the first chapter. And then I'm going to come up to the top and I'm going to get that book information that I need to have. So here is the title of the book. It's a little bit on the longer side. So I'm going to just paste this information in here. And I'm going to have to go back through. And since it was all on different lines, I'm getting rid of some of that spacing just so I'll have it all neat. See, what else do I need? I need to go ahead and get the year. So where is that? I'm scrolling through to that title page. Well, here are the editors. We'll go ahead and copy their names, even though I think we already know them, but notice that they are in different order. So we know that these are going to be the editors, and whereas those were the authors of the chapter. So notice that did switch for this. We know that it was published in 2012, and it's by Routledge, which is in New York, New York. So we now have, I'm just going to write that in here. So it's 2012 and New York, New York. And we know that the title of the publisher is Routledge. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste Routledge right in here as well. Except I want to do it with the formatting already to make my life easier. Okay, so there's Routledge. So now I have all the information I need to be able to do this. So we're going to start right here because this is where the title of the actual chapter is. So we know that it's written by Alan, T period, D period, comma, ampersand, and it was written by very long last name, Turner de Tormes Eby. That is, again, one last name, L. It is, again, we know that it's published in 2012, so that gives us the author information. Now, again, I have the title here. Obviously, it has some capitalization that I need to get rid of, so that S becomes lowercase, the I becomes lowercase, the R becomes lowercase. Again, because this A is following a colon, it gets to stay capitalized, but the word introduction goes lowercase. So now we have the title and it's written by the authors. Now we need to put the editor information. It's in, and this is where it was important to differentiate between the order that they were listed as authors versus the order they are as editors, because it's the actual opposite. So in this case, it's going to be L, Turner de Tormes Eby, and T.D. Allen. And then we're going to have that capital, open parentheses, capital EDS, period, comma, and that lets us know that those are the editors where this book is located. And there we got the book. But again, I need to change a few things with that book, so I need to lower the case that. We also know that it needs to have a colon there. And then it's going to be the effect on employee attitudes, behaviors, and well-being. So again, remember, all of that is lowercase. It's going to be italicized. We're going to do that in just a second. Then we're going to put the page range in here, which we copied. There it is, 3 to 13. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to go ahead and do that italicizing for the book title. So right now we have almost all the information we need. All I need now is this right here, which is this city and state and the name of the publisher, period. So that right there is the correct reference for the chapter textbook. So it's that simple. I say that having done this for over 20 years. So I do know that it takes a little bit of time to get used to working in an APA style, but the more that you do it, obviously the easier it's going to become for you. So that shows you how to do one of these. I've also showed you how to do an article. Those are the big ones that you'll need to have because that's primarily what we end up dealing with in this course. So if you end up having any questions about this, feel free to ask in the discussion board.